Mike Huckabee calls himself a hard-working, consistent conservative, and on the campaign trail, his laid-back style and easy laugh are winning over crowds. But Huckabee is getting flack for raising taxes as governor of Arkansas, and some Republicans in that state say he's nowhere near as conservative as he claims to have been. So who is Mike Huckabee, and just how similar is he to another man we know from Hope, Arkansas? Joining me now is the Wall Street Journal's John Fund. John, thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
So Mike Huckabee, Baptist preacher, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, a liberal?
No, but not a conservative, at least on domestic issues. Look, a very engaging fellow, a terrific campaigner, but he's only going to wear well with people if he tells a story that checks out with the record back in Arkansas. Back in Arkansas, state employees up 20%. Taxes way up. Cut some taxes, raised a lot more other taxes. Internet, he wanted to tax sales tax. He wanted to have sales tax purchases on internet goods. This is not a record of a fiscal conservative. On education, he basically went along with the educational establishment. On immigration, he was someone who wanted to give scholarships to the children of illegal aliens that he wouldn't give to children from other states.
Amazing. So economic populist, would you say?
Well, he is a populist, and he reminds me of a lot of populists who happen to be from that part of the country. In fact, if he resembles anything, Tucker, it's Harriet Miers, who was a clear social conservative when Bush appointed her to the Supreme Court, but turned out to have very liberal views on a lot of economic and other issues.
You quote in a piece you wrote for the Wall Street Journal, which is making the rounds faster on the internet than almost anything I've ever seen that's not pornography. You quote Phyllis Schlafly, president of Eagle Forum, as saying, quote, he destroyed the conservative movement in Arkansas. Yet some of the same evangelicals who sold us on George W. Bush as a compassionate conservative are now trying to sell us on Mike Huckabee. Boy, I can't think of a more damning sentence than that.
Well, Phyllis Schlafly knows Arkansas very well. She's got a lot of people there, and they all agree that Mike Huckabee did not do the conservative movement any favors. One of the evidences for that is there are 33 Republican state legislators in Arkansas. Only 2 that I can find support Mike Huckabee. Now, he does have support from a former U.S. senator and a former U.S. congressman, but the bottom line is the party grassroots withered under Mike Huckabee. He didn't build the party. He built up himself. He's not a team player as far as they're concerned.
You no doubt have seen the response that he wrote to your piece, which you really can't overstate what a big ripple in the small pond of presidential politics that piece made. In his reply to you, he says, look, I campaigned tirelessly for Republicans across this country, helped get some elected. Is he well regarded by his fellow governors outside Arkansas?
Yes, they thought that he worked well with them. They thought he was incredibly approachable, a very good spokesman. But Governor Owens of Colorado told me, I tried to reform the National Governors Association. He stuck with the bureaucracy and the establishment. Mike Huckabee has a record for saying he's a conservative, but when push comes to shove, he sticks with the ruling establishment forces in any organization he's worked with, from the Southern Baptist Convention through the National Governors Association.
And I like Mike Huckabee. I
like him too.
I was at the newspaper in Arkansas. I knew him then.
I've known him for 15 years. Incredibly likable.
Very nice guy. I have noticed, I know him because I like him because I know him, but I noticed that every left-wing person I know in the press, which is everybody in the press, obviously, except me and you, likes him too. Is that why? Because they kind of sense, as a dog senses, that he's one of them?
Well, look, the S-CHIP health care program was not about helping poor children get health care. What it was about was having another step to socialized medicine. Governor Huckabee himself agrees with that. In his letter, though, refuting my piece, he says, well, I admit that I'm the only Republican presidential candidate to have opposed President Bush's veto of S-CHIP, but I did it for political reasons, not for policy reasons. Well, what's the substantive difference, Tucker? He wanted Bush to sign that bill for whatever reason. That is an incredibly liberal big government bill.
Gee, John, you're kind of depressing me. So let's say you're one of the 9 people in America who still believe in small government, and yet you're not, for whatever reason, going to vote for Ron Paul. Who do you support in the Republican primaries?
Look, I'm a journalist. My job is to sit in the front row of the spectator seats and at halftime go down and shoot the wounded.
So you're doing a good job of that, but who are you going to vote? Who are you going to vote for? Who's the conservative candidate here?
I think there's several candidates that are going to be tested the next few weeks, and we're going to see in the end who has the best message and who can, I think, approach this campaign in a Reagan-esque way. The party is going to nominate the most Reagan-esque candidate, I'm convinced, and we're going to find out who that is in the next 2 months.
Can you make the generalization based on the Huckabee example you just gave, that a lot of evangelicals, while they're pro-life, they're sincerely opposed to abortion and good for them, they're not that conservative on other issues. You think that's fair to say?
Well, certainly, free trade is not something that they necessarily buy into, although most of them do shop at Walmart, and they love those low prices. So there's a contradiction there that they don't really resolve.
John Fund of the Wall Street Journal. Thanks a lot, John.